Hello and welcome. We are in conversation with Rohit Kapoor, Vice Chairman and CEO at EXL Services. Rohit, thank you very much for speaking with us. Just a general sense first, how's the sort of process outsourcing industry been doing this year and in the context of economies in the West looking up, particularly UK, US to some extent?
So Govind, thank you for having me here. I think this year the business process management industry is in a really exciting place. I think what you have is the more developed economies of the US and UK coming up in terms of where they were before. And there's a growing acceptance of the value that is being delivered through business process outsourcing and business process management. So I think it's an exciting time period for us. We're seeing a number of different trends. We are seeing a greater acceptance of the use of analytics.
Right.
We are seeing the use of embedding technology along with processing capability. We are seeing a number of different verticals and domains emerge out. So it's a great time to be part of this industry.
So the analytics seems fairly self-explanatory, but tell me about the technology embedding in processes.
Well, there's a big move towards trying to drive a greater amount of automation in terms of the back-end processes.
Right.
And particularly when you can take some of the business process application tools, when you can combine that with technology wrappers, and you can use technology platforms and embed the services along with these tools, I think that creates a very, very powerful combination.
Can you give us an illustrative example of an industry or a company, if you could name
So the best example I could give you is in the healthcare space. In the healthcare space, the US in particular is focused on driving better business outcomes and lowering the cost of healthcare.
Right.
Now, in order to lower the cost of healthcare, the administrative costs are a big component of the overall expenditure in healthcare. And if you can leverage technology along with the processing in a scientific and disciplined manner in a low-cost location, that results in a much better business outcome. And what we are seeing today is that there are new business models of healthcare being offered to customers that are being adopted in the US. And this is a perfect time to establish how you develop technologies to offer these types of new services to customers. And it's really converging together because the back end is driving the need for technology, which is driving the business outcome, and it's all being driven together.
And does that also sort of segue into the third point you made about new verticals?
Yes, I think the healthcare vertical is again an area where there's a lot of activity that's taking place. The banking and financial services industry vertical, there's a lot of change that's taking place in terms of risk management, credit scoring, credit lending, and again that's resulting in a lot of appetite. So these industry verticals are seeing a tremendous amount of transformation and change.
So if I were to ask you about the last 1 year, were there any kinds of businesses or deals that you won which were distinctly different from maybe what you've done in the previous few years?
Yes, there are many deals which we won in the past few years. Number one, we won some very significant and large deals in transformation alone. In the past, we would see some small-sized project-based work being outsourced, but now we are seeing large-scale deals over a long-term period being contracted for, and we're very, very happy to have won some of these deals, particularly in the banking and financial services sector.
So what does this reflect about what's happening there in the companies?
I think what it reflects is a greater confidence in the ability of a company like EXL to provide value on a sustained basis.
Right. That's from here. What about the other side? What's going through? What I'm trying to understand is what's going on in those big sort of Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 100 companies that's making them do deals like these?
I think from their side, what they see is that this is a model that works. And this is a model that they can effectively leverage. Because in the past, they would just try out a small project and test it out. Now they've got conviction. And the conviction is what drives a much larger deal size and a much longer time period of that contract. And I think that's what's driving that.
Right. So what's happening here in India for you? Are you affected by all that we read and see and talk about, or are you immune to this?
Well, we certainly get impacted by the currency volatility, and particularly the depreciation of the rupee. In one sense, it's a good thing for our industry because it makes our services that much more competitive. On the other, the volatility itself creates some issues of its own.
Right.
What I'm really concerned about is actually if there is inflation which goes up, and I think that's going to change the cost structure of our industry and for our company. And that's something which we've got to be very, very cautious about.
And when you say inflation, do you mean salaries and compensation, or do you mean the overall costs of running a business, down to, of course, fuel and so on?
I think it's both. I think at the end of the day, you've got to take a look at the broader CPI and the WPI indices out here. And that's going to drive wage inflation. It's going to drive inflation in terms of real estate. And these are all critical components for our business.
But it's interesting that, that someone who runs a large organization like yours should be focused on inflation in India, where actually what you perhaps are benefiting from is, let's say, the economic growth in another country.
That is true. But what happens with our business is we've got long-term contracts.
Right.
And these long-term contracts, if they're not structured well to account for currency fluctuations and in wage inflation, you can end up with the wrong type of a contract. And these contracts can either be very profitable or highly unprofitable. And you've got to be able to deal with that challenge. Right. So you might be getting a huge amount of demand, but you've also got to manage how you drive your profitability within these businesses.
Right. And you're also saying that some of these jolts have come in the last couple of years in terms of the costs shooting up here, or has it been a steady increase?
I think so far what we've seen is just the volatility in the currency fluctuation. The inflation part has not yet played out, but that's something which is something which is likely to play out, and we've got to be careful about that.
Right. And last question, how do you see the year ahead for yourself? EXL?
I think the year ahead for us is going to be a year where we will be doing several different things, trying to go much deeper into some of the domains that we already specialize in, trying to work on some specialized services. We are also in the process of launching some new products which we can take to market amongst our client base, and being able to leverage our new platform of being able to use technology, analytics, and the processing capability together to provide value to our customers.
So new product would be aimed at any particular sector? Would it be more banking and finance again? Or?
Yes, the new products are more likely to be in our core industry verticals. And so that's where we would target that. It's also likely to be in the area of analytics. And we've got now ways in which we can replicate the use of certain business models across industry verticals.
Right, Rohit. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thanks, Govin.
Thank you.
All right.